Evening's guest at Belfast. Having forged a long-held reputation as a champion of free speech and civil liberty, Bill Etheridge will need no introduction to many of you. However, for the benefit of those who may not be so familiar with his work, here's a potted history of his career to date. An alumnus of Wolverhampton Polytechnic, Bill plied his trade in the stainless steel industry before following his true vocation as a public representative. His first foray into the field of electoral politics came under the banner of the Tories. However, as an unapologetic campaigner against political correctness, Bill would soon fall foul of the thought police who patrolled the corridors of Conservative central office. It is testament to his ideological integrity that Bill would sooner sacrifice career advancement than his principles. This would not be the last occasion that he has faced ostracism for his beliefs. Having discovered his spiritual home in UKIP in 2011, Bill's star was soon back in the ascendant. After polling a very creditable 7.5% in the following year's West Midlands Police and Crime Commissioner election, Bill and his former wife Star were swept to office as Dudley councillors amid the purple tide of 2014. This groundswell of support for UKIP would also see Bill elected to the European Parliament, where he represents his native West Midlands without fear or favour to this day. Having established his credentials as a powerful voice for the Black Country, Bill would score 24% vote share as our 2015 general election candidate in the Dudley North constituency, a tally almost double our national average in that poll. As I mentioned earlier, Bill is somewhat of a bête noire to the PC brigade. In fact, he positively revels in this status, wearing it as a badge of honour. Take, for instance, his defiance of the University of Sussex Student Union in November last year, deeming his very presence on campus a risk to its safe space policy. Their duty of care to snowflake sensibilities demanded his speaking engagement be cancelled. Unbowed, Bill simply took his message to a wider audience in a Brighton public park. I am reliably informed that no one was harmed during proceedings. He surpassed himself last month, however, in what I'm sure was an entirely measured and rational assessment. Bill described his Dudley Council Labour Party counterparts as a procession of imbeciles and morons. This resulted in a charge of breaching the Council's code of conduct. In his defence, Bill did later make amends by apologising for offence caused to imbeciles and morons everywhere. Beyond the rough and tumble of politics, Bill likes nothing better than indulging his passion for cricket, real ale, Black Sabbath, Wolverhampton Wanderers and boxing. You didn't think you'd hear all that in the one sentence, did you? So beware, the gloves are off tonight and you better be ready to roll with the punches. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Bill Etheridge.
Well, thank you, and thanks for that great introduction. Thank you, mate. I really appreciate that. Right, I've got something to live up to, haven't I? Look, it really is a pleasure to be here. And, everyone always says this wherever you go, it's always a pleasure to be here. But for me, it really is, because I'm a really strong believer in the only union that matters. There's only one union that matters, and that's the United Kingdom. The European Union is an effort to destroy freedom, an effort to destroy quality of life, an effort to destroy all of our historic values. This union is the one that keeps us free and keeps liberty. And this is the one that has brought liberty and great values to the whole world. So for me, to be here amongst true patriots, not lip service, but people who actually live and breathe it every day, is my honour. And I'm so glad to be here. I've been here once before during a leadership hustings. I was stopped by the snow from coming last time, but I was determined to come back because this, for me, this is what, in many ways, UKIP should be all about. Because it isn't simply about some of the things that we're going to talk about liberty and free speech and fighting political correctness and all of those things, which I will talk about. But it's also about preserving this great, fantastic, historic union that has not just served our countries well, but has served the world well. Without the United Kingdom and Great Britain, this world would be a worse place. And I can stand up very proudly and say I'm a patriot. And I love our country. I love it. I'm not ashamed to say that. And there are so many people nowadays who are. They're frightened to say it. If you stand up and say that you love your country, you love your flag, you love your people, you're a racist or you're some kind of evil, fanatical lunatic. Well, that's nonsense. And one of our duties, one of our aims is to put this to bed once and for all. And frankly, as was mentioned, a lot of people do get upset by this. And to all of those who get upset, I quite simply say, tough luck. Because we have had enough of being calmed down, being quietened, being told that we can't say what we believe in and represent the views that have held us in good stead for centuries. No more. No more of that. I think the referendum, whilst it was only a battle in the greater war for freedom, woke a lot of people up. And it's made people realise we shouldn't be ashamed to be proud of our country, and we shouldn't be ashamed to be proud of who we are. And by God, we shouldn't be ashamed to say what we think. Now, this political correctness that has plagued us for some time now, people say, oh, it's all about good manners and courtesy. I say it's quite the opposite to that. It's about thought control. This is what it's about. It's not in any way about preserving saving the blushes of people. Oh, you mustn't say these things. It's so embarrassing. Nonsense. If we are to be a free people, we must be free to say what we think. And then someone else has got the right to stand against us and say what they think, and we have the right to disagree. We have the right to debate, and we have the right to be friends again afterwards. Because that is the way that our country has been great for so many years. We allow people to disagree. And now the movement is upon us that stops us doing this. We're no longer allowed to disagree. Because if you do, you're committing a crime, a hate speech crime of some description. I mean, this is nonsense, ladies and gentlemen. Because the next step on from that is that you start to ban political parties. Can any of us really not imagine that in a few years' time, political parties might start being banned? Because if you put forward a manifesto that offends sensibilities, it's not much of a leap. And in this thought crime world that we live in, it's the first step. And what is it leading to? Why do they want to do this to us? Well, there is, as always, a plan. Always these things are put together with an ultimate aim. It isn't simply a random series of events, folks. This is not what's going on right now. What's happening is that there is a drive towards global governance. And that the EU represent that. And many of the people up until certainly recently in the US State Department represented that. And what they want is an easier life. They want things to be controlled. So, if those uppity British wish to pursue a certain policy, well, we better stop them, because that's going to offend the French or the Spanish or the Italians or the Germans or whomsoever. Let's bring everyone together. And why? Because if we bring everyone together, we make it easier for the free movement of peoples. And if we have free movement of peoples, then we can have standardised working conditions. And if we have standardised working conditions, then global corporations can dominate the world. And it doesn't matter if people in Belfast decide that they're not prepared to put up with a certain wage level or conditions, because we'll just get people in from somewhere else, or we'll move our factory to somewhere else, because it's all going to be the same. And no one will be free. And quite frankly, in our nation, for decades and decades, people have fought hard to improve the standard of life for working people. And it's all being undone with the complete collaboration of the labour movement. These socialists who claim to be standing for the working man are oppressing the working man. Now, as was rightly touched on, I called the Labour group in Dudley Council a procession of imbeciles and morons. I also called them commies and pinkos. I called them a whole range of things. And you know why, folks? Because I wanted to provoke them. I wanted to see what happened. And you know what happened? They organised a very expensive investigation. They got someone in from outside the council. This is a council, by the way, where they say that they have to look at changing bin collections to fortnightly. They have to shut care homes. They have to put the council tax up because they've got no money. Mm-hmm. But suddenly someone says something they don't like, oh, they can find the money. There's no problem then. And they've done this long, expensive investigation. I'm still waiting for the figures to come back because they're having some difficulty telling me how much it cost. I can't imagine they're hiding it. And what did they decide at the end of it? Well, they're going to do a vote of censure in the council against me, saying I'm a naughty boy. Well, that's obviously terrified me. But then there's something that's not so laughable. They're going to try and put into the council's terms and conditions that if you are elected, you have to not say similar things on social media to anyone. They're going to control what an elected representative can say. This is an attack on freedom and democracy. I can say these things, and I accept the words that I say. They're deliberately provocative. They're deliberately like that to provoke debate and discussion. But then when the establishment hears them, what do? They'll spend your money on shutting your representatives up. And that's the way this is all turning out to work. So we have a mission. And obviously, we're a party in a movement with lots of missions. But I think one that's going to be pervasive for even longer than the shambles of Brexit, which I will talk about, is this one to fight for freedom of speech and liberty. I think that's what we should be. That should be the spine of our movement and our party. To say we are free to disagree. We are free to argue with each other. We are free to express our views without being clamped down on by anybody. Because if we are not free to do that, then we are no longer free people at all. And we are in no better position than the old Soviet Union. And if you look at the comparisons between the old Soviet Union and what the EU seeks to achieve, it's very, very frightening. And it's very similar. And I truly believe that if we are forced back into the EU, or if we're not allowed to leave correctly, our next generations will not know freedom. Not as we know it, and not as the generations before knew it, which was even purer freedom than we have now. But let me backtrack a little bit, and I'll explain to you a little bit about why I feel this way. And it might have some resonance with you here. Because at the turn of the 20th century, a lady left from here called Mary O'Neill. And Mary O'Neill went to Liverpool, where she worked in service in a house. And she met the young man of the house, by all accounts a bit of a bounder. His name happened to be Etheridge. And he disappeared after the First World War and didn't come back. But then Mary O'Neill had a son, Herbert, who grew up in that area, was kindly adopted, because in those days, a son out of wedlock, as you can well imagine. And Herbert Etheridge was adopted by the Milroy family. And I still to this day have Milroy as part of my middle name as an honour to them, who brought him up correctly. Herbert Etheridge served in the Second World War. He was the first person called Etheridge to be in Brussels, in a tank. He was in a tank. He got out, he fought hand to hand. He cleared that city of a German-controlled superstate. And he went on to battle hard. And then from there, when he came back, he moved looking for work to the Midlands. And that's where my father, Alan, was born. And hence why I stand here as Bill Etheridge from the West Midlands, who still knows where his roots are, as so many people around the world do. But if you look at that story, and you look at the story of working class people moving around a country to find work, to better themselves, to improve their lot in life, and then it culminates in a flawed politician, I'll accept, but a politician all the same, who is represented, here to represent those self-same people in this great battle of our times. I hope you can understand the passion with which I put my points, because I think for all of us, you need to know where you've come from in order to know where you want to go, and to appreciate what got you there in the first place. So many of our young people nowadays do not have a clue of where they came from, of what happened to get them to this point in life. And European education, the Erasmus system, teaches them all sorts of things. I think someone is desperate to get in over there. Teaches them all sorts of things and I'll save this punchline for when this person's coming because they're going to love it. But you're taught a whole different kind of education in our schools nowadays. And the education you're taught, amongst other things, you're taught global warming is man-made. That's a fact. That's a fact. Not a theory, it's a fact. Anyone who questions it is a lunatic, and they're going to see a great big iceberg floating down the Thames or wherever any second now. So what comes from that teaching? Well, what comes from that teaching is you must all be taxed more. Because you're going to be taxed to have your heating on, because by turning your heating on, you're destroying the planet, you terrible people. How dare you not be cold? And then we have to put money into green technology, which often means subsidising windmills on rich people's land. So you've got poor people who can't afford their heating because of the tax that's taken from them, and the tax is taken from the poor and given to the rich. It's Robin Hood in reverse. And that's one of the things of education. But I'm going to give you my punchline about what European education does, because did you know, actually, that we aren't really sovereign independent nations anyway? And I'll give you the proof of that. Because the First and Second World Wars, I've called them by the wrong names. I should have called them the conflicts of 1914 to 18 and 39 to 45, which actually were the first and second European civil wars. That's what's taught in Europe, and it's being spread out. All of this is on purpose, for us to lose our identities, to forget who we are. I'm so proud of where I come from and the people who voted for me. I know all of you are so proud of where you come from. It's great. One of the reasons, actually, I quite enjoy occasionally being in Brussels is because, you know what, it's different. And they've got, when you get out of the Parliament and into the surrounding areas, and in Strasbourg as well, where the other Parliament is, they still keep their identity for now. And we should all keep our identities. We should all live as we wish to live, in the environments we chose, not changing it. And then we come on to another thing. We have a situation of mass immigration. Now, much of that immigration has been required. There are people who have come into all of our areas of our countries to do jobs that were necessary. And other people will wish to come to our country because our country is the greatest nation on earth. Without any shadow of a doubt. There is no greater nation on earth than the United Kingdom. Nowhere. So people will want to come, of course. And these people who are coming, don't forget, being led by the nose in many instances, because the establishment want to change us. They don't want us all to have our individuality. And they come into our country. And there are many, many millions who've come now. And we have to embrace something called multiculturalism. Embrace it. We've heard the term so many times, embrace it. And what does it mean? What does it mean that people of different ethnicities should all get on? Because I agree with that. I went to a school in inner city Wolverhampton. Believe me, if I hadn't believed in that, I wouldn't have got out of the school. Right? I believe in it. You know, and it was, for me, I think the mix was sort of 40% Asians, 30% Afro-Caribbeans and 30% white in my school. Never occurred to me there was an issue with it. But what multiculturalism does is something different. What it does is it encourages people to be separate. And speaking here, in this place of all places, you understand what happens when people remain separate and have a fear and loathing of each other. And what has happened is the ghettoisation of large parts of our nation. There are parts of our big cities that are no longer British. They've been changed. And when it comes to the point where Sharia courts are acknowledged and accepted, where you have situations where, certainly in Birmingham, there was one example where a swimming pool, they had to put blinds over it because they were concerned that someone was going to be coming and looking at the ladies, and the local Muslim community demanded it. I mean, this is nonsense. This is nonsense, and then you've got people covered from head to toe so that we don't all get wildly excited by looking at them. It's nonsense. But what about women's rights in all this? We had International Women's Day the other day. Did we have anyone speaking out saying, well, what about these women who are forced to be covered? What about these women who have second-class rights in their own communities? No, because that, you can't say that. You're being a racist. Well, no, you're not. It's nothing to do with it. It's a simple thing that multiculturalism combined with political correctness leads to the destruction of the values that this nation has fought for, that many people have died for over centuries, and they're being eroded by this, deliberately eroding our values. And by God, it's wrong. It's so wrong. So I say to you that this party, this movement, all of us, should say to hell with political correctness, to hell with being frightened of saying what we think, and certainly to hell with multiculturalism, because multiculturalism divides, and we should be coming together. Now, if you're British and you love our country, I don't give a damn what faith you are, I don't give a damn what colour you are, I don't care, as long as you love our country. But this country, historically, is united, and it comes together under the rule of Her Majesty the Queen and our flag. That is the thing that's been fought for generations, here and elsewhere, and it should not be allowed to pass, not at all. And it's happening in front of our eyes. The backlash of the politically correct establishment is happening right now, and if we are forced into a situation where Brexit doesn't mean Brexit, where we are forced back into the EU, despite the vote of the people, we'll lose all of this, because they'll have won. And 2018 is the year to fight this, because if we lose this year, there won't be another year. It's not like we can reorganise and come back. This is it, folks. This is it. This is the battle of our lives. Now, we're not like many of our forefathers, or like Herbert Etheridge in my case, who have to dodge the bullets and go out there and fight. We have to dodge name calling, people shouting at us, spitting at us, the establishment threatening to cut us off Facebook. You know, all right, you know, they shouldn't do it, but it's hardly going to scare you, is it? You know, this is not what we're going to be scared of, because we've got a greater mission. And I want to talk about Brexit as well, because I know, being here, the disgusting, conniving, cheating cowards who work both for our government and for the EU have used Northern Ireland as a bargaining chip in all this. They disgust me. The sacrifices that have happened, the pain, the suffering that's gone on to get to the point we're at now. I'll give you a small example. I work with a group, Justice for the 21, in Birmingham. They represent the families of the people who were killed in the Birmingham pub bombings. And they still campaign for justice, because if those people who were arrested for it didn't do it, then somebody did. So we need to find out who it is. And you listen to the stories from that family of what they went through, and it's only one small example, there are many, many more. You can't let it lie, you can't let it rest, you can't allow this kind of thing to happen, but you also can't allow bureaucrats in Brussels and London to say, well, if you have a full Brexit, the troubles will start again. No, they won't. And also, if you have a full Brexit, they say, well, we better make some kind of a situation where Northern Ireland is betrayed. No, no, absolutely no. Northern Ireland is a vital, integral part of our nation, and it will not be betrayed, and it should not be betrayed, and we should fight this, and we will. We will not allow this to go. And I can promise you, I know it seems that the names of UKIP are distant at times. We're over there, and we don't come here that often, and I apologise for that. But we care about this, and UKIP will not allow this to lie. No. Northern Ireland will not be betrayed, and we will not allow the people of Northern Ireland to be betrayed or used or threatened or intimidated. Will not be allowed. We will stand with you all the way, I promise you. You have my word, and I believe the word of all other people who are good, solid people in our organisation. We will never let you go and never let you down. We'll stand by you, because it matters. It truly matters. So there's so much that we're talking about tonight that matters. This is not just a normal political meeting where we can come and have a chat about, well, I'd rather the tax was cut by 1% or this was moved by that. It's not about that. This is the battle and struggle of our lifetimes. It's for our individual freedoms. It's for the love of our great nation. It's to remember those people who've gone before. And I'll give you one last thing, because I really hope that what I'm saying is going to stir some good questions and comments from you. I hope so. If I ever leave a room and people haven't given me a hard time, I think I've done something wrong. Right? So I hope so. But recently there's been a controversy in Wolverhampton, where I was born. A man who has a relevance over here as well as there. A man called Enoch Powell. Now, Enoch Powell served as the MP in Wolverhampton for 2 decades, and then he came over and was an Ulster Unionist. And he made one speech which everyone always harks back up on, about mass immigration. The rivers of blood speech. Now, I believe that he should be commemorated in Wolverhampton, where he was the MP for so long, with a blue plaque. And I've said to people, look, whether you agree or disagree with this guy, he was formative in a lot of opinions. And it wasn't just about immigration. Some of us who might be a bit older might remember him campaigning with Tony Benn in the first referendum on the common market. Others may remember the fact that when the Conservatives went pro-Europe, he said vote Labour. This is a man of principle. This is a man as well whose economic theories and ideas were taken up by other politicians in years to come. Now, you may disagree with much of it. I mean, I disagree with it. He said he was a unilateral nuclear disarmer. I disagree with that. But he's still a relevant figure. The argument is that he should be forgotten. Never speak his name. Ignore and forget. Wrong. We remember our history, and we learn from our history, and we take on board what's gone and the discussions around it. And that's what I've been fighting this cause for all the way along. So from my early days, as was so kindly mentioned, when I got in trouble being a Conservative, as being a campaigner against political correctness, the way through to finding my home in the truly politically incorrect, libertarian-minded, freedom-loving, United Kingdom Union-loving party of UKIP, that's where my home lies. And that's where I believe the British people's hearts lie. We just have to communicate it better. And we can, and we will. So we have a future as a party, and because we don't have a choice, if we don't do it, no one else will. The Labour Party, I love to talk about them. I'm going to carry it away, I'm going to hold myself back. I'm not going to say anything because I'm being filled. They might complain again if I call them imbeciles, morons and commies, which they are. And pinkos. Yeah, I forgot that one. But, the Labour Party recently, they did a draft press release in which, and it got leaked out, in which it said they'd had discussions in Brussels and the EU agreed with them on the policy for what we should do in the Brexit negotiations. So the EU negotiators agree with the Labour Party, and the Labour Party have gone out to Brussels and checked with them that it's okay what they're going to say. I call that collaboration. I call that betrayal. I call those people traitors. Traitors to our nation. I don't care what they say. They are traitors. They are betraying our country. They are betraying the working class. And they're betraying their historic duty. Her Majesty's Loyal Opposition is the title. And they are betraying us. And then, Theresa May. Theresa the Appeaser. The woman who goes out there to Brussels, head bowed, and takes what they've got to take. She comes back and says strong words. Do you remember in the general election, Brexit's safe in our hands and all this? This liar has betrayed us. These negotiations, folks, are not negotiations. They are surrender terms. She's finding a way to allow Brussels to still control us despite what the people said. That's disgusting. And her party will continue to do so. Now, they have one or two people who shout and make a fuss. Oh, look at me, I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, I'm Boris Johnson, I'll say these things. Yeah, keep on saying it. Doing is another matter. It's all very well to be there. All they do is provide cover for Theresa May to carry on. They are useful idiots. That's what they are. If they really mean what they say, come and join the real patriotic party. Get the hell out of that party of appeasers and collaborators and come to UKIP. Otherwise, shut up. Frankly, because I'm sick to death of hearing this. And all it is a plan. to make you think you can vote Conservative. It's a lie. It's a lie. And the Lib Dems, well, they at least they openly admit that they want to commit treason and sell the country out. Let's not even waste too much time on them. But they openly admit that they hate our nation. So, I've said quite a lot there. It's been in my normal understated and calm way. What I really want is for a free-for-all in a moment where I will talk until I'm told by our chair tonight to shut up. I want to talk about anything that you want to talk about. There is no political correctness. This is not a safe space. I will prove that I'm more than medium to high risk. I'm very high risk. But the important thing is that when we leave this room, even if you think, well, Billy's a bit of a big mouth fool, really, I don't really agree with him. Or, this bloke gets, I don't care, as long as you actually know what you think. And maybe I might be able to pass on some information to you in the questions. So I'm going to wrap up my formal part. I'll come to you. I'm going to wrap up my formal part simply by saying one more time to you how truly honoured I am to be here and how genuinely from my heart I mean the words I've said, and whatever small amount of influence and power I have will always be to stand by and serve and help you in your fantastic efforts here in Northern Ireland to make sure that our great union stays together in the face of hostility from outside and from within. And you will always have a friend in me. And I thank you so much for allowing me to come. Thank you.
Thank you.